On the last episode of Nintendo Switch games to buy before they become rare and expensive, I put together the biggest list that I had ever done on any episode ever with 21 different games. And I have another big list today with 16 different games. And the first one that I have to talk about is Lan Grier 1 and 2, because this collection includes two classic strategy JRPGs that are highly sought after by collectors. I believe this game did get a reprint at one time by Video Games Plus, and it's still going for reasonable prices on the secondhand market between $50 and $60. So this is one that I predict will go up over time and definitely become more expensive and harder to find. I definitely have never seen this game compilation anywhere in stores. The only place I've seen it available is online. So if you're interested in it, if you like classic strategy JRPGs, definitely get this one before it becomes harder to get. The second game on today's episode that you may want to pick up before it becomes more rare and expensive is the Ninja Gaiden Master Collection, which is a trilogy of 3 different 3D action games in the Ninja Gaiden series. I believe these games are from like the PS3 360 era, and they've all been remastered on the Nintendo Switch. The only way you can get a physical copy is by getting the import version, which right now seems to be going for around $50 to $60. But I definitely believe that will change in the future, especially with a lot of Nintendo Switch 2 games only getting these key card editions. It's looking like Nintendo Switch 2 games aren't going to get a whole lot of physical copies, and that means a lot of these Nintendo Switch 1 games that are all in the cart will definitely hold their value pretty well, or even become more rare and expensive, sought after by collectors. The third game on today's episode is one that has been referred to me by a lot of viewers down in the comments, so thank you guys for this one, and that game is Bayonetta Origins, Cereza, and the Last Demon. Now this is a kind of niche game that got slept on. It didn't get as much popularity as the mainline Bayonetta series, as it is kind of a spin-off and looks and plays a little different, but it does have a really cool art style, and I've heard that it is a great 3D action game, and it is a Nintendo Switch exclusive, of course. And you can find this one pretty cheap right now on the secondhand market, actually cheaper than what you would find it at retail from what I've seen. So if you're interested in it, you may want to try getting it off of eBay for a cheap price from a trusted seller who has a good rating on there. But anyway, let's keep this list moving. The fourth game on today's episode is one that I believe originally came out back on the PlayStation Vita, and that game is Tokyo Xanadu EX Plus. This game is an action JRPG that is highly regarded by Falcom fans, the developer of the game, and also by JRPG fans. I've heard that this game is really good, that it's a sleeper hit, underrated game, and you can still find this for pretty good prices right now on the Nintendo Switch. But because it is a really niche game, I can definitely see this one becoming rare and expensive as time goes on and as the copies sell out eventually. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see if my predictions are right. I think I have gotten a good amount of things right on this series so far, because I have seen some of the games that I've talked about definitely increase in value over time. Before I go on to my next pick, I just want to ask, if you're enjoying the content and you're not already, please subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and don't forget to drop a like on this video. I really appreciate you watching. The next game on today's episode is another import game that already appears to be getting pretty rare and expensive on the second-hand market, but I believe you can still find it at PlayAsia for around $60, and that game is Dead or Alive Extreme 3 Scarlet. Now this game is a very fan-servicey game that you play sports in, basically with bikini babes on the beach. You play stuff like volleyball and other games. I know the game actually does look really good on the Nintendo Switch from what I've seen. It does look like a cool game. I've thought about adding it to the collection, but I'm not sure how fun the actual gameplay would be. If the gameplay is good like that, somebody let me know down in the comments, because I'm not trying to pick up a game just to look at some bikini babes in it. But if that's your thing, then definitely make sure to pick up this game before it becomes rare and expensive, because it's already getting up there in price unless you get it from Play Asia. But even then, you'll probably still have to pay some good shipping on it. Speaking of games going up over time, one game that I covered a while back was Daemon X Machina for the Nintendo Switch. This is a console exclusive, but you can also get it on PC. And back then it was going for like 40 to 60. Now, since the sequel got announced for the Nintendo Switch 2, this game is going for like 80 to 100. GameStop is still selling used copies for 60 if you can find it there. And I did see a few listings on eBay for around 60. So if you're lucky, you can still get this for a somewhat reasonable price, but you will definitely want to pick this one up sooner than later, especially with the sequel coming out soon for the Nintendo Switch 2. The hype and interest in the first game on the Switch has definitely gone way up. The next game that I have to talk about for this episode is Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, because I remember a few years back seeing this at GameStop for like 35, less than 40. It was kind of cheap on the secondhand market. Now I see this one actually going up a bit, going from 40, 50, 60, even above that for sealed copies. And I believe the reason this game will definitely hold its value or possibly become more rare and expensive is because this is the only way to have both of these games all on the cartridge, and it's the only way to play Bowser's Fury, which is like a 6-hour fully open world 3D Super Mario game. These games are both great. They are a ton of fun, and I highly recommend adding them to your collection if you don't have them, especially now while you can still find them for reasonable prices. But who knows, maybe Nintendo will reprint this game in the future, because Switch 1 games are still playable on the Nintendo Switch 2. River City Girls 1 and 2, the import version, is a game that I covered back in like the second episode of this series, because I knew that the limited run version of River City Girls 1 was going for like $100. It still is, I believe. The second one you can get for cheaper, but it would be expensive to get the limited run versions of these games. So you can get the Asian English import with both games all on the cartridge for a good price. But I've noticed that it is definitely going up. Back then you could find it for like 30 to 40. Now you can find it for 40, 50, 60. I'm seeing some sealed copies even more expensive than that. So if you're interested in these games, I highly recommend picking this up for the Nintendo Switch. These are great beat 'em ups. You can play with 2 players. The graphics are great. The music is great. You can get a lot of upgraded moves in this game. You earn currency for knocking out the enemies. You get to pick up money, go to the shop and buy different moves. And it seems like it pays homage to a lot of classic fighting games and beat 'em up games, like the moves that you would see in those games you see in here. It's a really great time, and I highly recommend owning this on the Nintendo Switch for beat 'em up fans. So just like I did on the last episode, I do want to make sure that I continue to cover a few more of these Nintendo Switch exclusives that are definitely under the radar, and I believe will get more rare and expensive over time. And I believe this is the most slept on Zelda game on the Nintendo Switch, and that is Cadence of Hyrule: Crypt of the Necrodancer. I gotta be honest, I tried to play this one and I was doing really bad at it. It's not a bad game though, looks really fun, but this is a kind of a mesh between a rhythm game and 2D Zelda. I do own all the Zelda games physically for the Nintendo Switch, so even if I don't end up liking it, I am still gonna keep it in the collection just to have it as a Zelda game, because I do really like the Zelda series. But I do want to try this game out again. I know people really love it. You know, this is basically Crypt of the Necrodancer with, you know, the Zelda kind of skin put on it. But it is really cool. It looks kind of just like a modern 2D top-down Zelda game. And I highly recommend picking this one up because I definitely think this one will go up in price over time. Grim Grimoire Once More is a really niche real-time strategy game for the Nintendo Switch, developed by none other than Vanillaware, so it definitely has that awesome art style to it. I haven't got around to playing it yet. I have opened it because I don't plan to resell my games like some people like to say in the comments. If that was the case, they would all be sealed. See the cool artwork there. But I've also heard that this game has a really steep learning curve and is hard to get into, but I've heard that once you do learn the mechanics of this game, that it's definitely rewarding and a lot of fun. But because this game is so niche, it is by Vanillaware, I believe this one will definitely get rare and expensive over time. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe this was going from like 40 to 50, and I see a lot of listings now selling this for around 60. So it looks like it may have price jumped already just a little bit. So definitely get it sooner than later if you're interested in it. So for the last 4 games that I'm going to cover on this episode of Nintendo Switch games to buy before they become rare and expensive, I have 3 strategy RPGs and an action RPG to talk about. And the first one of these is one that I believe is the most slept on out of all the HD 2D games from Square Enix, and that is Triangle Strategy. And I guess it's even slept on by me because I still haven't played it myself, and I've heard a lot of people say that this game is a masterpiece, a really great game. I've heard that it's even just as good or better than a lot of the Fire Emblem games, which I love the Fire Emblem games on the Nintendo Switch. This is that same style of great game, strategy RPG, where you're moving on a grid, turn-based combat, and the art style looks gorgeous. I definitely need to get around to playing this one, but because it is the most slept on, kind of the least that I hear about out of the HD 2D games from Square Enix, I definitely believe this one could go up over time. So definitely keep an eye on it and get it if you want it. Fire Emblem 3 Houses, one of the greatest games on the Nintendo Switch. This is my #1 Nintendo Switch game of all time. Great, phenomenal game. I believe, you do see a little bit of a trend with the older Fire Emblem games, like the ones on the GBA. The ones on 3DS were becoming expensive, but looks like there's still copies of them out there for good prices from what I can see. But I can definitely see those and the Nintendo Switch ones getting more expensive over time, just like Fire Emblem Engage. Another great Fire Emblem game, has great graphics, some of the best graphics and art style that I have seen on the Nintendo Switch. The gameplay in this one is phenomenal also, probably even better than 3 Houses, but what makes 3 Houses the better game overall to me is that the characters and story and music are just way better. But this game does have a solid story and absolutely phenomenal gameplay. And the last game that I have to talk about on this list is a true hidden gem that you can get for really cheap right now. But, when you look at the history of games going up in price and collecting, it's usually the JRPGs that go up. So the last game is Neo: The World Ends With You. This is a really stylish 3D action JRPG. It is a bit heavy on the dialogue, but the story is really solid, really cool. The gameplay is great. If you're looking for a kind of under the radar AA JRPG, I just highly recommend this one anyway, just from a gameplay perspective. But anyway, that is it for this episode. If you're not already, please consider subscribing to the channel if you want to get more Nintendo Switch, Nintendo Switch 2, and gaming content in general. I really appreciate you all watching so much. Don't forget to like this video, and until the next time, I will catch you all later.